Really happy to be joining you. I'm Eddie Obeng, and you've probably worked out that I only have one shirt. So I'm really delighted to be there with you at the event and to be kicking off your third day. It's really special for me. I look like this as a real human being, but you're probably wondering what I was talking about with the green boxy avatar. So I'll show you really quickly so that you realize how strange we look. So that's me in the middle with the green boxy avatar, and that's me moving my head around. So thank you very much. I'm really happy to be part of this conference, and I'm hoping we're going to get a chance to explore some of the ideas in that talk and have a bit of an interaction together so we can work on our challenges together. Am I right? Am I in the right place? This is the Making Waves inclusion forum. Am I in the right place? Sometimes I log in, I end up in the wrong place. And are we talking about confident change? I hope so. Okay, I'm just teasing you. What I'd like to do then is try to get us to focus on what we can cover in the next quarter of an hour or so. So I'll tell you what my hopes are for the session and what I'm worried about for the session, and then maybe you can tell me yours, and then we can put them all together and make sure that something good happens. I'm assuming that you want to actually understand a little bit more about World After Midnight Change and that concept, that idea which you're taking away from the conference, which you can do is can be put into place, and you can actually make some waves. I think you would probably like some what I call ninja tools and tricks for trying to get things to change. So that's what I'm assuming, but you'll have to tell me better. But I do have fears that from my side that we might not do things absolutely right in this session. One fear is that you don't take notes because you're busy looking at strange avatar boxy things. The second one is that when I ask for questions, nobody says anything because everyone's too shy. And the third is I have a real fear of zombies. Um, yeah, I know it's strange. Zombies they look like us as human beings. Their bodies are here, but their minds are usually inside their devices somewhere. So I hope that doesn't happen. So I'm going to pass to Glenda and say, Glenda, please could you get from me, from the audience, one or two hopes which people have, and maybe any things they don't want me to do. I think there's a microphone there, so if you could capture them, then we can align quickly and make some progress.
Yes,
Glenda, is that okay?
Eddie, welcome to Minneapolis. And we
I'm
have
happy to be
people who
here.
are here with microphones, and so I invite you to raise your hand if you have a hope for this session. If you have a particular question you'd like to ask Eddie, or some issue that's coming up for you in your turbulent change, just wave your hand like this. Eddie, we've got some zombies. Come on, wave your hands. Yes,
No,
okay.
no, not allowed. No
No, we have
zombies.
a question. We do have a question. Please tell us who you are and where you're from.
Right at your end, so I hope that you can still hear me.
Yes.
Glenda, you might need to repeat it. I think the microphone was out of range.
Well, Eddie, the question is, given that there's so much progress and the technology is moving us forward very, very quickly, there's an enormous resistance in this country. I should tell you, Eddie's in South Africa. Eddie, where are you today?
Oh, I'm in cyberspace.
In virtual space, huh?
So
So in the
tremendous resistance, yeah.
Yes, in the US, we're experiencing a tremendous resistance from conservative groups of various stripes who are holding on to the past and want to save tradition, in spite of the fact that what you say a turbulent future is moving forward. How can we address that? How can we think and act with regard to those resistant forces?
Brilliant. I'll do that. I mean, one of the things which is really important when you're trying to drive an awful lot of change is that you bring people with you. So I'm going to spend a fair amount of time just talking you through how you actually get other people to engage, even people who are more conservative or sometimes just afraid. How do you do that? Great. Do you have any fears? Does anyone say, please, Eddie, don't do X, Y, Z?
Any fears in the audience? Raise hands.
No fears.
Particular questions, fears, things that you want to have happen. We have someone over here. The
Oh, yes,
mic is
please. What
coming.
don't you want me to do?
Yes, excellent. Tell us who you are and where you're from, please.
Julie O'Mara from Las Vegas. So my
Hi,
fear
Julie.
is hi. My fear is that I won't quite fully grasp what you're saying because in the TED talk earlier, the whole thing about the pipeline and that went pretty fast for me, and I'm not sure I quite caught on to the whole thing.
Okay, so part of the reason that I'm here is so that I can go really slowly. So we'll have a deal. How about this for a deal? If I'm talking too slowly, Glenda, can you get people just to put their hands up in the air and say, "Oi, you! You're talking too fast." And then you relay that to me, and I'll say things a bit slower. I can also see through the webcam what people are doing. So if we do that, and for if people are really shy, um, then please just wink at Glenda and she'll relay it on to me. So if you're shy, you don't have to put your hand up to say it's too fast. Okay,
That's great.
great. Thanks,
We have
Julie.
one
That
more
was
question
brilliant.
as we're starting.
One more question, yeah?
Yes.
I've got one.
Yes, please. Tell us who you are.
My name is Patty Yaritz. I'm from Diversities Research and Recruitment, and I attended a Thought Leadership Institute that was put on by a gal from Rensselaer Polytechnic, and one of her things was she did an entire presentation on innovation as a career killer. And what became it fascinated me that what happened when people were innovative and created centers of excellence, then their organizations no longer knew what to do with them, and they ended up leaving, even though they created really cool things within their organizations. It was like if they weren't doing that center of excellence or that new product development, the organization didn't know what to do with them anymore, and so it became a pattern, and then people stopped innovating. That's a fear.
Great, I've got it. Yeah, absolutely. So basically, you got punished for innovating because they went, well, you don't really fit, we're not really doing that, and then they get squeezed out. I can do that. Okay, let's make a start. First thing I want to say is, I did something quite strange just now because I asked you for your hopes and fears. Normally, the professor just spouts forth all the important, useful things. I asked you your hopes and fears for a number of reasons. One, I wanted you to start to think about what you wanted from the session. I'll come back and explain that later because that helps answer this question about resistance. The second thing I really wanted were all these fears, because if you tell me the fears, and Julie, I'm probably talking too fast now. If you tell me your fears, I can deal with them in advance, and that makes it more likely we'll have a successful outcome. It's the same challenge in a fast changing world. If you can find out what's stopping people moving and deal with it in advance, they come with you much better. Stop and think about it. Do you know anybody who wakes up extra early in the morning to work with passion on something they think isn't going to work? Nobody does that. But they'll have those worries in their minds, and you as a leader have to bring them out and see whether you can propose something which makes them relax. And if you can do that, they're far more likely to come with you. In terms of the fears, often the reason we don't ask people their fears is because we're scared that they might tell us. So I want to try and explain to you how you can make sure you have a method for systematically killing off any worries anybody has so that they can really engage and be part of something. And the way I'm going to do that is by just quickly explaining or reminding you about some of the movies you've seen in your life, especially movies which involve aliens. Everyone here has seen at least one science fiction film. Yes? Put your hands up. Yep, that's it. Good. Okay. All science fiction films are the same. They involve aliens whose job is to travel to Earth to come to eat you. That's their job. Okay. I want you to imagine an alien spacecraft has crash landed just outside St. Thomas. Okay. And there's steam coming out. This is the alien thing with steam coming out of it. Now, if I said I'm walking, this is Eddie, I'm walking towards this alien spacecraft, what would you say to me as I walked towards this alien spacecraft? You go, are you crazy? Why are you going there? Why would you tell me that? Because with no training at all, you recognize that going anywhere near an alien spacecraft is really, really dangerous. Okay? In the films, they never realize that this is dangerous. In fact, they run towards the alien spacecraft, and you shout, "Don't go." So the first thing which you have to realize is that such films tell you to look out for the danger. If you hadn't given me such good advice, I'd probably have gone. Problem with alien spacecraft is when you're outside them, they're really small. The moment you get inside them, what do you discover? They're huge. And the aliens have no manners. They never come to the door to greet you and say, "Hello, I'm an alien." No, they hide, and you have to wander around going, "Hello, any aliens there?" You can never find them, of course, if you watch these films until the music starts. At which point, there's instantly a sort of an alien thing sort of towering over you with lots and lots of slobbery, slimy, purpley blue bits. What do I do if I'm going to survive? Well, in theory, I should try and run the other way. Bad news. The alien has more legs than me. He's going to catch me. The only way I can survive the alien is if, unfortunately, sorry, Mr. Alien, I'm going to have to shoot you. I'm going to have to get rid of you quite early. Sorry, Mr. Alien. But that's what's going to have to happen. In the films, they never do that. They meet the alien. Usually, when they arrive at the spacecraft and they see it's so big, they say the magic words, "Let's split up." One of them meets the alien. In the films, of course, they have laser blasters, so they could blast the alien, but they never do. Instead, what they say is, let's think about this. I'll call my colleagues." And of course, while they're calling their colleagues, they get eaten. So their friends arrive. There's no sign of anyone except the alien. And they go, "Let's take this thing back to the laboratory to study it." So they take it back and they lock it in the kitchen or something. Meanwhile, of course, it's digesting their friend, so it's not doing very much. So somebody has to keep an eye on it. Who do they normally select to keep an eye on it? Do they select the sensible cadet? No, always the mad scientist, who then falls asleep. The alien grabs him by the throats, kills him, and escapes through the slidey doors. And then finally it goes on a rampage, eating everybody, and the only way to get rid of it is to blow up the whole space station, which is what we call Plan B. Now, this 5-stage process of identify, get rid of the problem as early as possible. If you can't get rid of it, lock it up. If you can't lock it up, keep an eye on it, and for goodness sake, have a plan B. That's how you systematically take people's fears away. I'm going to pause so you can actually think about that, and in that pause period, I'm going to take you across to the other whiteboard. Everybody's thinking really hard, and while we're at this whiteboard, I'm going to take you to the Ninja tool, which you'll have a takeaway of, which is called Fix It Now. So this particular Ninja tool is designed so that you can take any challenge. You'll get this as a takeaway. So the example I'll use here is we recently did an upgrade to QUBE, QUBE.cc, our software, and that was what we were doing. But we said, what are the things we worried about? So what are the dangers? And we noticed that our launch party was on the same day as the World War I celebrations. No, that's not good. We noticed that we needed to try and make sure that our chief technical officer didn't meet the first few days of his daughter's school. So what we then did was we said, okay, how can we fix this? Is there anything we can do immediately to fix it? Well, we planned our breaks in the celebration to match the silence times for the World War I celebrations. And the second thing we did was we moved the UK and US teams to work on the same time zones so our CTO could actually make his daughter's first day at school. Let's fix it now. I'm going to shut up, Glenda. Can you please just check whether people are nodding to say, yep, they understood that and it's easy enough for them to apply that in their real lives to take away fear, or if they're shaking their heads?
Can you bring down the lights a little bit so that I can see people shaking their heads? So.
No, nodding their heads!
Nodding their heads. So does that make sense? You see how those steps happen. You see it in your organizations. They are nodding their heads.
Brilliant. Okay, let's keep going then. We're now going to go and look at this thing about resistance to change, because that was a really important question. Oh no, I'll do one before then, which is there was a question about innovation killing your career. So if I could take you through that and what's happening, and then we'll move straight into trying to understand a little bit about how we can make change work. There is a problem with change. Change comes in many, many different flavors. I've got on the board to our right here, I've got a couple of different ideas which I'll share with you just quickly about change while we try and understand why it kills your career. This is one of my favorite cartoons. I shall move on. This is a series of cars, and I'll try and explain what happens with human mindsets. And as I explain that, it'll help a little bit. This is a horseless carriage, I think you can see. Next to it is this is a horse-drawn carriage. Next to it is a horseless carriage. And then, of course, there were some people who didn't like the idea of a carriage not having any horses, so they put their own horse on the front. Okay, just behind that, there's a what we now call an automobile or a car. So I hope you spotted that as well. And if you remember the Henry Ford quote, he was teasing us that people would probably not have wanted anything other than a faster horse. This is an electric car. This is a BMW i8. And now I'm going to ask the audience, and you all have to shout out the answer. What's this one? Answer? Driverless car.
Driverless car.
You have no idea what you just said. You know, we were laughing at the people who called this thing a horseless carriage. 100 years from now, you have no idea how they're going to laugh at us. They'll go, ha ha, they called them driverless cars. And that's what we're stuck with. When new things come along, sometimes it's really, really hard to make any sense of them, to know what to call them or what to do about them. And part of the reason is because of those curves which I talked about earlier in the talk which you watched. Do you remember that we had the scenario with the accelerating world, and at the same time we had the flat learning, if you remember that?
Ready? Our world
Yes,
is accelerating. You have about 3.5 more minutes in this accelerating
yes, I know.
world
Don't worry.
we live in.
It's perfect because I've got two things I've got to share with you. One is, once we crossed over that line over there, the headache which we had was when you do new things, sometimes you don't know what you're going to do and you don't know how you're going to do it. This is where innovation lies. I call this fog. Imagine we were all lost in the fog. The most important thing for us is to hold hands. The reason people's careers get derailed by innovation is because they don't hold hands. They need to keep continuous communication with people so that they don't end up with people saying it's a driverless car and then they feel really silly. So that's one. The second thing I want to share with you, which is how to overcome the resistance, is you have to remember human beings evolved in a world which was dangerous. So for most of us, somewhere in the backs of our heads, about here, there is a piece of software which runs day and night looking for change. And if it sees anything it doesn't recognize, it's called your amygdala, it immediately goes, oh my goodness, something has changed. It's a threat to my security. And then three important things happen. The first is the brain, the logical bit of the brain, gets switched off. A big switch turns it off. The next important thing which happens is they get really, really, really scared. Okay? And once they're scared, they stop listening. And then they fill their bodies with adrenaline, and then they fight and flee. Why am I telling you this? Because with the pace of change around us, many of our friends and colleagues are really emotionally with their brains turned off. It's like when you go to a meeting and somebody announces something you weren't expecting, and remember how you can never remember what to say. That's the challenge. So, trick to bring people with you. Do not surprise them with change. Instead, use something else altogether. You'll notice I've used a lot of questions in this presentation. Why? Because questions allow people to join the conversation. How might we do this? Why does this happen? How are you feeling? Have you got any fears? So the ninja tool I want to share with you is IDQB. It works on everyone who's human, and it's a great way of making sure people really connect. So imagine that your colleague has done something like written a report which isn't very good. What you want to say to them is, your report really wasn't very good. If you say that to them, the bad news is you'll switch their brains off and you'll get an emotional response. Has that happened to you? Yes, of course it has. You don't do that. What you do is you reconstruct it into these 4 stages. You start with a description of what you see as the situation, but neutral, nothing negative. Don't say we need to or we need to talk or anything else. You know that report you've been working really hard on. You're even allowed a little bit of positive spin to keep them up with their brains on. Great, everyone's still with us. Then you tell them some facts. You don't put a but in here either. You say it had 23 mistakes, and when we applied it, we shed loads of dollars, and the client said to us, I have never blah, blah, blah. But then, rather than saying, why did you do it, or what was wrong, or making them in any way stressed, you say to them, what could you do differently so we don't have that problem again? And then you let them talk. If you do that, they think about it themselves. The change is less frightening to them. And part of the challenge we have is everyone who markets new technology wants it to look new and shiny, and they're frightening all of us and scaring the horses. I'm going to take us back to the screen. I got probably about another minute. So Glenda, can you just check whether people are nodding for me that their hopes have been met and they've learned something new and concrete in a very different way?
Will you be able to use those 4 steps as you go back to build innovation and survive, to address the kind of resistance that you've had? Not only are they nodding, they're saying yes and applauding.
Yes. Okay. So I only have one last thing to say, which is it has been an absolute pleasure working with you. My life is completely different from understanding technology and ways of working. You know, people talk about rocket science, and here I've got some rocket science. What I hoped I could do today was rocket science is unintelligible to all of us. That's why we call it rocket science. But to a rocket scientist, it's just playtime. So I hope I've given you some things to play with, and that'll really boost and help you. My life is very strange. I spend a lot of my time traveling virtually, like I've been with you today. I would have loved to travel also physically, and if sometime you get a chance to log on to QUBE, cube.cc, and join me as an avatar QBot, we can chat, we can do things together. But if you don't, it's been really great, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you very, very much. Thanks very much indeed.
Lovely.
Thanks. I
Thank you
appreciate that.
so much, Eddie. Thank you
That's great.
so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you very much. Bye. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. Thanks.
Thank you. Goodbye. Lovely wonders of technology.